Hey guys, Kyle here with a quick correction. At the end of this episode, you'll hear us say that we have a new episode next week. After we finished recording today, we decided to take a short break for the holidays. So if you're listening to this in 2022, just know we will not have a new episode next week. You can look forward to the beginning of our Chain of Memories episodes in January 2023. Okay, on to the show.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Dream Drop Long Distance. My name is Mitchell Orsino, and with me always is my co-host and dear friend, Kyle Bradshaw. What's up, Kyle?
Hey, how's it going, man? I'm a little bummed today. In a happy bummed way. I don't know. Because today we're tackling the final portion of the first Kingdom Hearts game.
Yeah. No, this is it's kind of a little into the first part of what we were trying to do with this podcast, and we're gonna delve into the final big bad of the game, and then probably do the Ansem Reports, skim through them, talk about them, and then we're gonna talk about the secret endings that we unlocked due to because what all did we need to do? We needed to beat the Hades Cup and beat it on Proud mode, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's a way to do it on normal mode, but it takes a lot more work. Like, I think you have to complete Jiminy's journal, which
my God,
no one is going to do.
No, that is way more work. I'd rather just put in the extra fighting.
I mean, we came pretty close to finishing the journal either way, just by doing synthesis and by doing the Dalmatians. That's like a decent chunk of it right there, but I'm still not going to bother putting in all the effort.
No. I completely agree with that. So let's go ahead and just jump in because we have a bit to talk about.
Yeah, so last we left off, we were at the end of the world. We kicked Chernobog's ass, and we flew down into his mountain, went through some weird, distorted areas, and found ourselves in front of a door. But not just any door, the same door that was at the beginning of the game during the Dive to the Deep or Dive to the Heart section. It's interesting to see this again. There's some obvious symbolism going on, or some even if it's a little heavy-handed. I don't know why this door is here. What do you think?
I mean, it's like you said, obvious symbolism. It's showing that this is something you only see at the beginning, and you're seeing now at the end of the game. And then it was a big turning point. So obviously, this is probably the opposite, where it's an ending point. I also think maybe they just didn't feel like rebuilding a door asset, and they just were like, just slap it on the side of that cliff. It'll be fine. People won't care. I do think it's a little small. I don't know what you thought. Like when I saw it, I was like, this is underwhelming.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll give you that. Especially by comparison to like way back in Destiny Islands when we saw Mickey's castle or Disney castle or whatever, and there's that enormous door that Donald walks through.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
There's that, but then there's this,
Mm-hmm. Well, which I mean, if we remember correctly, Donald doesn't technically walk through the big door.
No, true, yeah.
That was great old-fashioned Disney comedy. Loved it. Like him just pushing a small section of the door out and a big door never actually opening.
Yeah. The next thing that happens after you decide that you're going to open the door, for one thing, I appreciate every video game that does this. They warn you that this is the point of no return. Once you open this door, there's no going back.
Yes, I completely agree. There's no heals. They basically are like, do you have enough items? Is this the equipment you're going to use? There's only one point where you have a slight moment to be able to change some equipment if you want to, but there's no saves. There's really no like way outside of what you currently have on you to be able to change. So they're not lying. It's like, you better be ready for it.
I find it interesting though that in this moment that it's a voice talking to Sora and he can hear it. And he's like, oh, did you guys hear that voice? And they're like, what are you talking about? I don't know if it's ever really explained who or what it is that's talking to Sora in that moment.
I mean, at least as of right now, no. I don't think we've got any hints on who's been kind of leading him along, like who's been narrating to him.
Yeah, so that's interesting. But yeah, you finally choose to open the door, and on the other side is the Destiny Islands. Or so you believe at first.
It's like, it seems like it, except that, they make it to where you can't really traverse anything. You can't go into any of the buildings. The bridge is now gone that got you to the little like offshoot fighting arena that you and Riku fight in the very beginning of the game. It's kind of stripped down.
So yeah, the that cloaked figure starts talking to you again too. The one from the very beginning of the game in the Destiny Islands in the cave. He comes back up, and then after that, the world starts falling apart.
And the obvious weird thing, the world starts falling apart upwards. And so gravity is...
Oh yeah, that is weird.
Gravity has stopped being an issue. And then he takes his hood off, and you are greeted by, I guess, a very Final Fantasy-esque looking, kind of buff-looking, long gray hair, has kind of a Sephiroth look to him a little bit, with like piercing yellow eyes. And he introduces himself as Ansem, who, if you've been playing the game at all or listening to us at all, he is the person who wrote the Ansem Reports.
Yeah, and was considered a wise ruler by Aerith and all of her friends. But very clearly, this is not the same guy that they described, or something has changed dramatically about him, because this does not seem like somebody who could ever be described as a wise ruler. This is, as previously described, Ansem, Seeker of Darkness, in the body of Riku at that. It's terrifying, to be honest with you. Yes. But at the same time, one of the things that I put down in my notes, this Ansem's kind of hot. Not gonna lie.
That's so funny. One of my notes is Riku becomes a new form. Gorgeous man with a creepy ghost on his back.
Yeah, basically.
They give him the Final Fantasy treatment of like, for some reason, all of the villains are hot. It's just what it is.
And all in their own unique ways too. But yeah, they really managed to do it. I was like, damn.
I got a good laugh out of it.
So Ansem starts going on about darkness growing in the heart, and that darkness is heart's true nature. And then Sora cuts back at him, taking all the lessons that he's learned throughout the game, and says, "But I've learned that deep down, there's a light that never goes out."
Anybody wondering, this part of the game is arguably one of the most soap opera-ish sections. Like, it gets into the light versus darkness storyline very heavily now. And it's, Sora drops that line, and Ansem basically is just like, yeah, whatever, but I'm going to destroy you now. And I called it his familiar. It's kind of looks like a specter that it basically kind of like lives and manifests on his back. And it's this fight, you fight him a couple times in different varieties. This one I felt like it was pretty easy. Mainly, he'll try to come at you a couple different ways, flying around, and you just have to whack on him enough, and he'll finally drop.
The important thing to remember, though, is that we were severely over-leveled for this encounter.
We were. We had definitely, because I was about level 70. I was like level 78. I knew you were at 100, so I can only imagine. And by that point, he is a bit easier. If you're not quite prepared for him, that familiar is formidable, to say the least.
Yeah, I think it's a Guardian is what it's called. I don't know. The fight was pretty easy with Donald and Goofy, but once you beat him, two things happen. One, you actually are given a second, which is so nice. They give you a second between these fights. I can imagine if I was coming at this at level 65 or something, I would be very thankful for this moment because, I mean, even at level 100, I took the time to go into my menu. I used a tent or a camping set, whatever, just to heal everybody back up real quick.
That was actually the point I was talking about. There is that one moment right before you get into the real meat of this fight that they're like, okay, before you go jump back in, do whatever you got to do. Like, we're giving you a moment. And it's only that point.
Yeah, and I'm very thankful for it. I can only imagine how it would have been at level 65 or 70 or something to try and...
Oh, man.
My childhood self probably... Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, so you get through that nice little moment, and you go back into the fight only to have Donald and Goofy get separated from you.
They do. The fight actually happens inside of the giant tree, but it's been, ripped off and torn apart. So you're just inside kind of the base of the trunk. And I thought that was pretty wild, that it's like, oh, that used to be the tree that kind of like felt like it kept this island together. And you jump into it, and you're greeted by the giant, like, black, tendril-haired Heartless that you fight at the very, very beginning of the game.
I don't remember. Do you have to actually, like, fight him again?
You do. It's, I think it's like, he has like 3 bars of health. He's not hard. It's the same thing. He tries to, swat at you, and he'll summon the little smaller soldier Heartless, but it's just you whack on his hand enough and you take him down. It felt kind of out of place to me to have him there. I don't know if maybe that was just to make you, to like kind of tenderize you a bit for the fight immediately after that, which you have no healing time after.
I find it interesting that every single time we fought this boss, we did not have Donald and Goofy with us.
That's actually a really good point. I didn't even think about that. You only ever fight him as Sora, which is kind of cool because it kind of shows a little bit of like a connection there, but somehow between you and this heartless behemoth that for some reason only ever shows up to attack Sora by himself.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. It's almost like a dark reflection of Sora in its own way.
I mean, it's kind of got the hair and everything, too.
Yeah, no kidding. Big old mess of hair. It's not as spiky, but it's messy in its own way.
Yeah. I mean, because right after that, it's instead of, when it was like, oh, I can take Ansem with Donald and Goofy there, then they basically are just like, well, they're not here anymore. And it's a completely different fight.
Yeah, he can do a lot more abilities, too. So they took away your allies and made it harder. And by taking away your allies, they made you unable to summon, so you can't use Tinkerbell or anything like that. Solo, even at level 100, this was not an easy fight. I really enjoyed it. I kind of wish I had tried it at level 75 like you did, but it was still not easy at level 100.
At 78, it wasn't bad. Like I wasn't cursing the sky like I was for a couple other boss fights, but
Trickster.
This one was interesting. Oh my god. Trickster, Maleficent. But like, so for instance, I know it was this feature where he would, I forget what he says, it's something like coming for you or something like that, something along those lines. And his familiar will actually get in front of him. And if you hit the familiar, which after like the first time I fought him, I figured it out. If you hit his familiar, it will bond to you as a shadow. And every once in a while, you get this prompt that says freeze, or I can't remember the exact word. But if you try to attack at that moment, the familiar will pop up, grab Sora by the arms, and hold you, like, so you can't move. And so it was this tricky thing where it was like, you're being attacked, and you're also having to not attack at certain moments to keep the familiar from binding you, which then leaves you completely open to get attacked.
Yeah, and unable to heal in those moments, too. That's really tricky. I just ended up brute forcing through it because, again, I was overleveled. But I didn't even notice that you could prevent yourself from actually getting that on you in the first place by just not attacking the Guardian. I didn't catch that.
After the first couple times it happened, I was like, wait a minute. And then when it popped out in front of him, I just basically... I would dodge roll back, and after a couple seconds it would disappear and I would get back in and it would start hitting him, and I was like, oh, what activates that thing to possess is you interacting with it. Interesting.
It's cool the little details that they put into these fights.
I agree. I think it definitely kept it interesting. And then, he also has kind of like a limit break ability in this fight that you can't hit him while he's doing it, and it has like an AoE and a couple other, like a big slash-based attack that you have to dodge, and it's a good fight. It really is a fun fight that takes a minute to understand the mechanics.
And honestly, I think this is the real final boss of the game as far as story-required bosses that are difficult. Like, I think this is the most difficult final boss that we're going to face here. The ones to come, which we'll get to in a minute, they kind of fell short, kind of fell flat in terms of difficulty to me, anyway.
Yeah, and so I guess we can get into that as, we wind up beating them. The group is then back together, but then they're teleported. This boss kind of comes out of left field to me. Like, they don't really explain too well, like, why it's there. And the best way I could describe it is you're teleported to this dark realm, and there is this like amalgamation of...
It's an airship?
Yeah, it's like an airship made of heartless parts, and it's like got a monster face as the front of the ship. And guess you help me. Yeah, I know it kind of looks like the Bahamut Final Fantasy summon on the very top that's kind of controlling this whole thing, and then attached by like tentacles to this thing is Ansem, but for some reason now he's like 10 feet tall.
Which is kind of creepy, but also this part of the game is actually where I put the note that this Ansem is kind of hot, though.
Well,
I don't know why I didn't write that earlier. I wrote that down here, specifically here.
That's really funny, only because, he's like no shirt. They put him in like tight leather pants, and he's got like a giant chest tattoo. So they kind of gave him like a weird like punk rock vibe with a 2-edged spear.
Yeah. I forgot about his weird weapon. Yeah,
it's a weird one, only because you can kind of just keep wailing on him and like right in his face, and they have a nest of lasers that'll pop up eventually and start shooting at you, but they don't really, at higher levels, they don't do a whole lot of damage. I can definitely see where they're difficult early game, like if you're in like your high 50s, low 60s, if you somehow made it there at that point, why that would be difficult.
If anything, though, I think that they serve as just little sources of HP and MP, just like those little fights where you get to save Donald and Goofy, which just feels cool from Sora helping his friends. Those little HP, MP, and items are nice, especially since Kingdom Hearts is nice enough to put items that you pick up directly into your inventory if your inventory isn't completely full, or your quick slots or whatever. So that's nice. It's considerate of them anyway to put these little things in place.
Ooh, one note also, when you're teleported to this world, Donald and Goofy are not there. For the start of it, it's just Sora. And what'll happen is, as you progress this fight, there are certain points on the ship where there are kind of these little teleporting rifts in space. You go into them, and each one is a different like wave of Heartless that you have to fight in the dark. And the very first one is, little soldier Heartless. They keep kind of coming at you, and you take them down, and you attack this, what looks like a giant glowing nerve. And when you do that, it spits you out, and the ship takes a large amount of damage. So you're kind of entering into these voids where the cores of this ship reside to try and bring it down from the inside.
While also rescuing your friends at the same time, which I think is really nice.
It's really cool, because that was one thing I was like, damn it, when are they going to bring Goofy and Donald back? And you do it, I think, 3 times. One, you do as Sora by himself. The second one, when you walk in, I actually put down, I said, woo, Goofy's here. And each time, it gets slightly harder. Like, it'll be you and Goofy fighting completely in the dark, except for a little bit of light, like the glowing orb ghost Heartless. You get out of that one. You go to a third one. Donald's there, except this time you're fighting the, what are they called? The Invincibles?
Invisibles, yeah. My note for this one is, let no one forget that Donald Duck held his own against a room full of Invisibles.
Dude, yeah, I was like, when I walked in and Donald was there, I was like, first of all, how are you still alive?
Right. The pressure's on, and Donald rose to the occasion, man.
It was like arguably one of the hardest classes of Heartless to fight. It's completely in the dark. Like, you really can't see these things, so the lock-on ability is absolutely imperative. He's just been holding his own for the 20 minutes it took me to get to him. Like, bravo. I won't talk shit on Donald anymore.
No joke. If only he could bring those types of skills in a real fight with Sora. But okay, you know, I'm thankful that he stayed alive in that moment, in the do or die moment. From there, I think it's just beating up the ship. You beat up the ship's face. You hack and slash through a couple different weird little tentacle guys on the ship, and then you finally get to beat the snot out of the tentacle Ansem at the top of the ship, right?
Yeah, because during all of that, he actually absorbs into the ship. And once you take out all the nerves, he kind of spews back out enraged. And it's the same hack and slash. He's got his spear he'll try to hit you with, and the lasers will try to take you out. But once you do that, you beat him. I mean, the ship just starts to explode and kind of break apart and fade off into the darkness from where it came from. That's one thing I wish in terms of lore, they really gave no description on where this thing came from or how it was built. It just kind of happened.
You don't even know where you are. Like, are we in space right now? Are we in a weird darkness realm? Are we inside of that thing that the princesses came together to build? I don't really understand where we are or what we're doing right now.
Yeah, that was a weird... I wish they would have done a bit more with that. I feel like they were just like, oh, we have to throw in some ridiculous-looking, convoluted final boss fight. And I don't know if that was really the way to go. But I didn't design this game. Artistic choices, let them do their thing. That part of the ending wasn't really for me.
Yeah, honestly, they could have skipped this entire airship fight and gone straight from that second Ansem to the ending. Like, it wouldn't have lost any value, in my view.
I would have loved if it would have been after the solo fight with Sora versus Ansem inside the tree trunk. And Square Enix, if you want to hire me to do this, cool. Basically, picture the island starts breaking apart more. That Ansem then turns into this taller, spear-toting Ansem. And then Donald and Goofy run up, you square up on him, and then it's a 3-on-1 fight for the ending.
Yeah, something like that.
It felt like a filler, which was kind of whack.
But at the same time, it's a really high effort filler if you think about it. Like,
it is.
This thing was huge and probably complicated to make and have work correctly in a PlayStation 2 in 2002.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in terms of the achievement of making it doable and actually making it fun and challenging, like, kudos to them. Like, we're thinking, I guess I'm thinking about this in a sense of now versus, this is over 2 decades ago.
But after that, it goes to the closing cutscenes. We see that Ansem, despite being defeated by Sora, is now able to point over at a nearby set of double doors, which are much larger, now at least, than the door that we came into to get here. But he's like, the heart of all hearts, Kingdom Hearts, or whatever.
He's like the heart of all darkness. Kingdom Hearts, lend me your power. So basically, he's trying to pull more power because he's just like, I'm not done with this shit yet. I know you just beat me, but I think I can become even stronger. And at which point, Sora gives him, like, unlike you, I now know what it is. I know Kingdom Hearts isn't darkness, it's light. And the door opens and, le gasp. Ansem is hit with this wave of light. And he kind of just gets, like, roasted out of existence.
Basically, yeah. I think what kills him more than the light is the power of the pipe organs that start playing as the door opens.
It's like I don't know. Yeah, I thought that was funny. I wish they would have done even more with it just to make it a bit more epic. Because I felt like it was very quick because you've gotten all the way to this point. It didn't quite feel strong enough to me. But as of right now, he has been bested, and we have essentially beaten the big boss of the game. So a quick clap, just a quick little for that. So, but then the three look into the door and they see, which I kind of laughed at. They were like, "Oh, it's full of Heartless," but it's like that weird they're kind of like these little like masses that you could tell that they just texturized with little heartless heads sticking out of them.
Yeah, it's kind of gross and weird looking, and even in the HD remix, still just kind of is gross and weird looking.
Yeah, and the idea is that even though it is full of light, by opening this door, the heartless are now kind of have free reign to come out.
Yeah, so your first instinct is to shut it as quickly as you can.
And yeah, and they're pushing, like they're trying, but it just seems like this thing is stronger than the three of them can push.
Yeah, but that's because all the while they've been kind of hinting and teasing that the door can only be shut if there is a key on both sides.
And then who shows up to help?
Well, two people, actually, which is absolutely wild. Riku, who is expected. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, Riku, that makes sense. That's where he was before in that weird cutscene. All right, Riku. But also, King Mickey Mouse himself is on the other side of that door.
Finally.
Revealing that he was the voice guiding Riku down that pathway.
Yeah, Riku, like as they're pushing, Riku grabs from the other side and starts pulling, kind of just being like, come on, we can shut it together. And this big-eared silhouette drops in grandiose fashion. And Donald and Goofy are just like, oh, it's the king! And they're so excited to see him, except at that point he's just like, guys, I'm so proud of you. Like, you've done so great, but now we have to shut this thing. And whips out his own Keyblade.
That's right, everybody. Ding, 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 ding. We are at 3 Keyblade wielders in the Kingdom Hearts series as of today. Woo!
As of today, there is no longer only 2. And so they start to pull it. And as the door is closing, Riku, in one of probably the biggest character moments of this game for him, just looks at Sora through the door and goes, take care of her. And Sora nods at him because he realizes immediately what he's talking about.
Ah, Kairi.
I know. And then the door shuts and you realize that throughout all of this, now their friendship is completely intact. Riku is giving all that responsibility to Sora, basically being like, I'll be back, but in the meantime, you know what to do.
Yeah.
And all the trust is there. And I thought that was such a beautiful moment in the game.
And they really emphasize it too with parts that I do not remember being in the game, but here they are, where you have these little sepia tone flashbacks of Riku and Sora's friendship, you know, running around as little kids, the fights that they had on Destiny Islands, and just it was nice to have that encapsulated in that moment. You could kind of tell that they wanted to have a powerful moment to close on in the event that this was the only game they made. And I think they really made a statement through that.
Yeah, I think they did. I'm curious. I want to go back and see if those little like flashbacks were in the original game, because I don't remember that. I feel like that was something that was added, but I might be wrong. I very well might be wrong.
I mean, we haven't played this game in so long, so
I know.
Any little thing that we don't remember could have been there the whole time, or because we're playing the final mix, was not there when we played it. There's no way to know without checking it, yeah.
Very true. But anyway, so little flashback. They lock both doors, and all of a sudden, you know, everything starts to kind of fall apart. And who's there all of a sudden?
For no good reason, someone who is supposed to be in Traverse Town. Someone who is supposed to be in Traverse Town.
Because we told her to be.
Yeah, we said, stay behind. This is too hard for you. You'd only be in my way. Haha. Out of nowhere, here comes Kairi. What?
They don't explain where she came from or why she's there, but she's there.
The only thing I can guess is that maybe she was teleported or transported there because the Destiny Islands are being reformed. And that's actually what we're witnessing after the door is closed. That, you know, Ansem's been defeated and the worlds are going back together. And in that moment, Sora and Kairi are separated.
Yeah, I mean, Sora kind of is just like, you know, I'll find you. And she is just like, you know, I'll be waiting. And it's a sad moment because you can tell like the distance start to grow between them as the sand comes up under her and the smoke cloud starts to envelop him and they start to split apart and they are now separated again.
Yeah, which is so sad, and they really emphasize it well with Sora saying, "I'll come back to you, I promise." And Kairi says, "I know you will." And then right as she finishes that line, their hands are separated, and then immediately Simple and Clean starts playing. Oh, what a moment.
And it immediately goes into such a clean, like, into the game animated video where she's standing on the island. And it's that kind of goofy, like the trees start popping up next to her and the water starts to flow back in. And it's a very Disney-esque, like the world is being completely redrawn and reshaped around her.
Yeah. And I love that at the end, when everything is put back together on the Destiny Islands, they cut to her looking up at the night sky. And you can see hundreds of reverse shooting stars as the worlds are put back together into the sky, which they kind of emphasized early on in the game. I want to say in Traverse Town, like Donald or Goofy points to the sky and you can see a star twinkling out and they say, "Oh, another world's going out."
I feel like it closes out the story of the game, and just a lot of the problems that these guys were facing are now wrapped up pretty tightly.
Pretty simply and pretty cleanly, I'd say.
Shut up. Stop it.
I can't. What do you think they pay me for, Mitchell? Come on.
I know. Oh, one thing I wanted to note. When Sora was going to Kairi, Donald went to run after him and Goofy stops him.
It was the right call.
It was, but I thought that was like such an interesting bit of character development, was that in the beginning it was Goofy was like, "We need to help him." Donald was like, "He's none of our business." Now it was Donald running to him and Goofy being like, "No, that's none of our business."
Dang, no, I didn't even think about that. Wow.
So I thought that was an interesting flip of character there, of character growth, where Goofy realized that we have to let him go on that journey if he needs to. And now Donald, who seemed to care the least, now seemed to care the most.
Man, that I didn't even think about that. That's so cool that Goofy and Donald have each gotten their own character growth.
I love it. But then, so the credits roll and you get this really sweet kind of like collage of photos and scenes from the game.
Yeah, I actually took notes on all of them. You got Huey, Dewey, and Louie are going to Disney Castle. They're running around with the brooms and stuff. Cloud gets reunited with Aerith at Hollow Bastion. Pinocchio becomes a real boy for some reason. Not really sure on that one.
That one was creepy. I don't know why they did that.
Yeah, it's just like he looks so weird as a real boy in 3D. I don't know. I don't want to think about it. Jasmine and Aladdin are reunited. The kids on Destiny Islands are back to playing and running. And then there's the princesses. Each all give a curtsy.
And, then we get to see all the great animators and designers and everybody else who brought this game to us. It was really sweet.
I really enjoyed it. I liked the music that was going through the whole time. It made the credits worth watching. And I think this is the first game that I ever played that had something after the credits that I needed to keep watching the credits for.
Really? Huh. I guess, yeah, maybe.
I mean, I was only I wasn't that old when this game came out, Mitch. I was 9. And it's just not a whole lot that did this before, No.
I mean, this game it's set up a lot. As the credits roll, you're introduced. There's this incredibly long road, like dirt road. Each side of it is just wide open fields. And you have Sora, Donald, and Goofy walking down the road, except now Donald and Goofy are in their normal clothes. Or that from Disney. Donald's wearing a sailor uniform. Goofy's in his kind of classic orange vest, green pants, and he's got his little hat on.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What do we do now?" And Sora's like, "Well, I guess we'll go search for King Mickey." And then who shows up?
Pluto with a letter in his mouth that has King Mickey's seal on it.
And, it's a callback to earlier in the game where Pluto shows up and Donald finds the letter saying that King Mickey has left. So they're like, it's a letter from the king. And for some reason, Pluto then decides to just bolt down the road.
As every good boy should.
And then they laugh. And they're just like, well, let's get after it. And they just start taking off down this endless dirt road into the distance, chasing this dog.
And interestingly enough, I think that's exactly where we pick back up in the next game of the series, but we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the secret ending.
I have no goddamn clue what is happening in this ending. This whole thing is given a title, which is Another Side, Another Story, Deep Dive. This,
secret ending scene has so much early 2000s Japanese 3D animation energy to it. Oh my god. The cuts, the cutaway to text, it's all over the place.
Yeah, I don't understand what's happening. I really don't. There's so many people in hooded cloaks, like the boss that we fought, the Unknown. Everybody's wearing these cloaks. Almost every single person in this entire secret ending is wearing one of those cloaks. Mostly because they don't really want to commit to who these people are. But
of course,
there's so many people wearing these things. There's a beach with a message in a bottle. There's a city which has neon and lights, and it's far more modern than even Traverse Town.
This reminds me a lot of a Final Fantasy city. Something from either Final Fantasy 7 or 8. It's big, sprawling, stone skyscrapers, but you can see pipes and stuff running through. And, this main person who we don't know who it is being attacked by this just unending swarm of Heartless. And he somehow, or they, I guess, I don't even know if it's he, they're somehow holding their own.
They're managing to hold their own because they have 2 Keyblades in their hands.
They have 2 Keyblades.
So, ding, 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 ding. We're now up to 4, though I don't know if we can really count it as 4 because we have no clue who this is.
I think we'll count it because even though we don't know who it is, we know that they are a Keyblade wielder, so we will officially count this as our 4th.
So, we're at 4 Keyblade wielders now, and this Keyblade wielder, well, in a very dramatic moment that feels like Kill Bill almost, he looks up and sees someone looking back down at him from on top of a skyscraper. And as soon as their eyes meet, except it's not really their eyes meeting because the guy on top of the building is wearing a blindfold. Their eyes, quote unquote, meet and they just start running at each other. The dual wielder is running clean up the skyscraper. The other person is running directly down the skyscraper. The second person, I can't, we're not at a point where we can confirm this, but looking at this person, I'm pretty sure this is Riku.
Looks very, very similar.
At this point, we can't confirm it. Whatever, we'll get there. So Riku's running down this building at this guy, and the dual wielder throws one of his Keyblades trying to attack Riku, but instead he catches it, and it's, oh my god. Just that moment. They could have just had that moment, and that would have been the coolest cutscene ever, and end it right there. But it just kept going.
Oh, yeah. It really is. All of that happens, and then also they're cutting between these now 2 cloaked figures standing on a beach. One of them sitting on a log, and the other one walks up to him. And I honestly, the text was so sporadic and kind of it was like a Resident Evil game.
Yeah, they subliminal messages coming on screen and everything, yeah.
And then also, they were there super quick. They're a second, but you had Japanese text with English subtitles of what it said underneath, but normally you didn't know you didn't know which one to look at. So I didn't really catch what they were saying.
Yeah, the only things that I really caught out of all this is where's Sora? We must find him. And I've been to see him. He reminds me a lot of you. I think that was one of the things that was shared between the 2 cloaked figures on the beach.
Huh. Okay. I mean, that's kind of it for the secret ending. Like, it's a lot visually and stimulating wise. It's a lot.
You could honestly watch this 20 times and see something new every time. You'd have to do a frame by frame to really get the entirety of this cutscene.
Yes. I feel like this cutscene was, like you said, they weren't sure if they were going to get more games after this, but just in case, throw as much at this as you physically can so we can build on it if it happens.
Yeah, which is just incredible. Like, they managed to do it. Like, they made everybody who saw this ending extremely excited to play the next game. I remember talking about this cutscene in school, like, during recess. Like, oh, man, did you guys beat the game? Oh, yeah, did you do the ending, though? And I'm like, no, there's a secret ending. Yeah, dude, you got to do the thing. Oh, my God. They really knew what they were doing.
It was a cultural thing.
I mean, what a game.
Yeah, I mean, it changed a lot. The fact that people still talk about it. And I mean, people are now replaying it and replaying all of them, a lot like we are. And it's really awesome to see this has become such a generational thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's deserving of being it. Just from how iconic of a studio Square Enix is, and how iconic globally Disney is, it only makes sense that you put the two together and something incredible is going to come out of it.
Yeah. Oh, both of them are like, yeah, we're not going to make this if we think it's going to fail. So kudos to them, and to everybody who's listening. That is the end of Kingdom Hearts 1. The last thing we're going to speak on is the Ansem reports that we have been collecting throughout this entire game.
Yeah. So, for one, I just want to say, like, I think it's really cool that they put these in the game at all.
I agree.
That you have to find text and you can read it and learn more about the game if you choose to, which I'm sure is a common feature in all sorts of JRPGs. I'm sure this is not new in the slightest, but it was new to me when I was 9, and I really enjoyed it and have enjoyed it every other time I've seen it in a game.
I agree. It was a bit of backstory that, one, it gave you just by beating the game, but also I loved that there were 2 pages that I did not know about until we found out, like, you had to beat the 2 hardest bosses in the game to get this content and to get this information that is building you into the next games. It actually is, like, very big information. It's not like it wasn't a waste.
I know what you mean about it having a lot to do with both the future games, the current games. There's a lot here, like a lot of story building elements. Like, we didn't really get an explainer up to this point about what's up with gummy ships. What are those? Why are they here?
And we honestly don't even, because it seems like something has to kind of ring in Heartless into a place.
Yeah, like the door has to kind of be opened for the world to even be accessible, which kind of raises questions about Deep Jungle. Like, how did we get in there if the Heartless didn't get there until we showed up? I don't know. Weird stuff. Yeah.
They start off by just giving you a description of who Ansem was, what was like his goal, which, I mean, the very first line is, much of my life has been dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge. And that he says that, like, that knowledge has guarded this world well, not a soul doubts that. Which, to me, I read that almost immediately as like, oh, this guy's a narcissist.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And he stumbles upon the research and how he thinks that just a little bit of darkness in somebody's heart can swallow it completely over time, and he's trying to figure out how to remedy that, how to keep it from happening, because he's like, I must find these answers. And it's just like he building up that profile that, like, he thinks he's the only one that can do this. And you learn that over time he started doing some questionable experiments.
Oh, we're way past questionable. Like, oh, well, they died. I'm gonna leave their bodies in beneath the castle. Oh, well.
Well, it's like, I'm going to try to leave their bodies under there and he's figured out a way to like extract darkness from somebody's heart that was there and becomes a heartless. And then he's trying to figure out, like, is there a way to fix them? And he can't really figure that out. So then he's like, okay, well, then maybe I need to now figure out what is. And he actually comes up with the name Heartless, as we find out in Ansem Report 3. And then later on, he says that, like, they like to appear in groups and they multiply rapidly. But it was the line after that from Report 4 that says, I've provided them both living and non-living samples, and they've only responded to the living.
Yeah, that one's a little messed up. It's pretty clear that he's feeding people to the Heartless. He's feeding his citizens to the Heartless, which is very, very gross to think about.
Yes. And he's like, well, they obviously are taking people's hearts. He's like, I don't have any exact proof. They do seem to have some intelligence. And then he's trying to figure out how to communicate with them, which then it goes into, he starts to observe their behavior. How do they react? He says that, like, one of their antennae begins to vibrate as a strange door appears that he never knew existed under the castle. And it looked like it was locked. So he opened the door and he saw a powerful mass of energy.
Long story short, he finds the heart of the world, which is just a core of energy. But I'm imagining that it's like the metaphorical energy, or like the key in that kind of energy, not like our world, which is full of lava, and that's a different kind of energy. It's like magical energy, I guess. So he finds all this magical energy in the heart of each world, and he like describes that it's the heart of the world and that it's darkness just as much as every heart is full of darkness, which is why all the Heartless are trying to get back to it, because that is their darkness. It just, like, I don't know, it starts to feel like the ramblings of a madman, which is exactly what it is.
I mean, it is. He is starting to kind of lose himself, talking about how he's realizing that, oh, this world has a heart of its own, and just like the people he fed to the Heartless, he's starting to think, like, are the Heartless now going after the heart of the world? But then he starts to talk about gummies, which I thought was pretty interesting, and how the night that he opened the door, this meteor shower happened. And he's like, oh, these are materials foreign to our world. And which I think in my mind, he's like, oh, we can use this to get out of this tiny world of ours. But I think due to his narcissism, he doesn't realize that what he's saying is like, oh, these must be pieces from another world. We can use these to travel. If he really would have sat there and thought about this, he's like, I opened a door and all of a sudden pieces from another world appeared on our planet. So there's a possibility that by opening this shit, I just did something that completely destroyed another world.
No, that's a possibility. Or it could just be that the gummies are from the shield itself, because each world had a barrier that was keeping it safe. And by opening the heart of the world, maybe he's destroyed that barrier. Maybe that barrier is made of gummy. I don't know. That's just a theory. I haven't read into all this.
No, I didn't think about that. But in the next report, and as we get deeper, he claims that he's like, I've built a device that artificially creates Heartless, which I'm just like, why? And he's like, oh, they show, even the artificial and natural ones show identical traits. But he's like, I will mark the ones that are created artificially.
Yeah, there's a whole distinction about that, actually. There are actually two different types of Heartless. There are Heartless that are created from a heart, and there are Heartless that are artificially created. That's just a distinction. The difference is pure blood and emblem. So emblem Heartless are created in the lab, and the purebloods are the ones that occur naturally through hearts.
I guess it never really dawned on me until after I read that, and I was like, there are different variations of ones that are marked, if I'm correct. And so I was like, oh, damn.
Just to give an example from the early game, your normal shadows, they are a pureblood Heartless. The Gigas shadow, the Neo shadows, almost anything that's just like darkness Dark Ball. Yeah, most of your just like typical Heartless are all pure blood. But then you've got ones like the Soldier and the Fungi and things like that. Anything that actually has an emblem visible on it, anything that has that Heartless emblem on it was created rather than naturally made.
Okay. As we get into it, the last couple, I mean, Report 9, obviously, somehow Mickey shows up, tells him about the gummy blocks, and tells him about the Keyblade, which it seems like Ansem's now worried that somebody has the ability to close the door that he opened.
Yeah, it's weird how all that goes through, but he sets himself on the path to get himself a Keyblade, and he sets himself on the path to collect all the princesses. At first, I was confused as to how he even, like, understood what these princesses are. It's made clear in report number 11, where he says, I have chosen one special girl. I shall send her off to the ocean of other worlds, which is very clearly talking about Kairi. He yeets Kairi into the ocean of other worlds, and she winds up at Destiny Islands, which, go figure, his hypothesis was right. Kairi showed up smack in the middle of two Keyblade wielders.
They didn't say he wasn't smart. He just did a little extra.
No joke. The only other two tidbits that we get here are that, one, while Ansem was human, when he started writing this report, he became a Heartless. He transcended to the existence of only the heart. So he became a Heartless, which is the form that we saw him in. And yes. Also that he has hypothesized another form of existence. So there's humanity, there's there's life, there's Heartless, which is like just the heart, right? And then there's something else, which is just the body. And he calls them in here the non-existent ones, which is some very big setup for the next game, for sure.
Yeah, like it's crazy to think, because up until this point, it always seemed like whenever somebody got their heart ripped, their heart taken, the body kind of disappeared into the ether. But he's saying that sometimes if the heart tries to get back, it seems like the body doesn't accept it, or that the body has become something else. That is like, So you have the body, the soul, and the heart are now separate entities. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's and to anybody curious, Ansem Reports 12, you get, I believe, it's from beating Sephiroth.
Yeah.
And Ansem Report 13 is from beating the Unknown. So you have to put in some work to get these last two reports, but the information is pretty heavy going into the new games.
Absolutely. So with that last little tidbit that we needed to cover, I believe it's time to close the book, close Jiminy's journal on Kingdom Hearts 1. So any closing thoughts on this game, Mitchell?
Man, just as good as I remembered it being. Really was. This was a ride. I still enjoyed every minute of it. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you replay it and you feel like a kid again. And it was cool. And I'm really glad we did it. And now I'm just excited to delve deeper into the even wider storyline that this is about to break into.
Absolutely. They've been working very hard to set up a bigger story that could happen. And thank goodness it did happen, because, man, it goes places. Oh boy, does it go places.
There is not a set road on this. Or if there is, rephrase that. There is a set road, but the paths to get there are wide and varied. Absolutely.
It is not the straightforward road that Sora, Donald, and Goofy are running down in that final cutscene.
No. Do you have any final thoughts?
Honestly, I've just enjoyed being able to jump into this game and to have somebody to talk to about it along the way, because there's so much here, and if I don't digest it all, I'll just end up forgetting it. So this has been really fun and helpful.
Oh, absolutely. Well, guys, we will go ahead and we are going to, as Kyle said, close the book on Kingdom Hearts 1. And the next game we'll be jumping into is the second part of the series, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, which, as I believe, is one of Kyle's favorites.
Not in the slightest, you jokester.
Oh, I thought it was. I lie.
Not.
I'm a liar.
Nobody would ever, no self-respecting Kingdom Hearts fan. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but you get what I'm trying to say. Almost nobody would consider Chain of Memories their favorite game. We'll talk about it next week, won't we?
We will talk about it next week as we get into the next one. But thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you on the next one.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
Hey there, Kingdom Hearts fans. Thanks for listening to the episode. Dream Drop Long Distance is hosted by Mitchell Orsino and Kyle Bradshaw, and is produced by Kyle Bradshaw. Our theme music was written and recorded by Alex McLean.